right, so in this video, we're gonna rank some of the most popular, some of the worst, and the most hated, as well as some of the most fringe and niche UL backpacking shelters. And if you don't see, like, this is by no means comprehensive. I'm missing plenty of shelters. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different shelters. I just thought I'd put some of the most popular options as well as some of the coolest options that I want to get my hands on or that I have experience with and that I like the most. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to get into some deep cuts and we're going to talk about some super popular ones that are way overrated and then some that are way underrated. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the way that I'm going to rank these are based on the design, whether it's missing features, whether it's intuitive, is fundamentally designed for good living space and comfortable usage and simplicity. These are all hallmarks of good design. And then I'll also be ranking based on weight and price as well. And then maybe some aspects about just like the visuals or the company behind the tent might go into the ranking. But so the first we have on the list is the Zpacks Duplex, and they have a couple different versions of this. I'm not super familiar with what the differences between these versions are, but this is a very popular tent. It's one of the lightest two-person tents. Now, the main problem that I have with it is that it is not 50 inches wide. So a lot of these two-person tents aren't truly two-person, they're more 1.5. When you're shopping for a two-person tent, you need it to be 50 inches wide minimum, unless you are already sold and you know 100%, 110% of the time, you're gonna be taking a 20-inch wide mat and you and your partner both are taking 20-inch wide mats, assuming that you are going with two people. Now, if you want just extra space, I think there's better options. So let's see here. Yeah, floor width 45 inches. That's wide enough for one wide pad and one regular or skinny pad. So I think it's way overrated. I also don't think that these rainbow zip doors are very functional. Like, it's a lot better and it's more common to see these zips that are more coming down into the side, because you can like let it vent easier. You don't step over and onto the net once it's fully down. And it hangs from, like, once it's fully down, it's just like on the bottom and it could get in the dirt. Whereas with this, it hangs from the top and it won't get in the dirt. You won't step on it. So this, I think, is way overrated. I'm going to give this, I want to give it a D. It kind of feels wrong just because it is so light. So let's get a C, just because the weight is kind of saves it. I also just don't love this A-frame kind of design, because although it is probably like 12 inches at most off the ground here, you're gonna be brushing your head up against it and your feet, depending on how well you have it pitched and how tall you are, as well as how high and how much loft you have to your sleeping bag and your pad. So yeah, I think it's way overrated. C at best, D at worst. Next is the Xdome. This is the Xdome 2 and Xdome 1 Plus, and soon to be released Xdome Pro. I'll just kind of bundle them all together and rank them as one. So the biggest downside of this tent is that it is heavy, mainly because of the materials it's using. It's using sill poly, and it's a double wall tent, so that means there's an inner and a separate fly. Now, it has its cons and it has its pros. The pros are that there typically isn't any condensation issues. You can have more versatility in the way you're pitching. Let's say there's no bug pressure, you can just bring the rain fly and the poles and you don't need to bring the inner. I really do like this design. It fixes a lot of the problems that most freestanding tents on the market right now have, and we'll get into that in a bit here. But it's, for the Xdome 2, it's 50 inches wide, checks that box. The fly, or the internet, the way that it's zipped, It helps with that issue that was previously mentioned here with this rainbow design of an inner fly, of an inner zip. So yeah, I want to give this an A. It's probably one of the best double wall freestanding tents that you can get, just because of the versatility. It'll do pretty well in wind. It'll do pretty well in winter. In summer, you have a lot of options. It fits 2 wide-inch pads. If you go with a 1+ version, you have a lot of interior space and vestibule space, and it's truly freestanding, which a lot of these other freestanding tents aren't actually freestanding. And now that we're on the topic of freestanding, let's talk about this. So this is the Nemo Hornet 1-person, 2-person, 3-person. I actually didn't include notes, but it's a little bit lighter than the Xdome 2. And I personally have used this tent, and I have this tent, and I'm gonna be getting rid of it this season. So the reason why I don't like this tent is because it's not truly freestanding. So to get the full volume and the full interior space, you need to stake out these corners, and you need to stake out the vestibule, as well as the interior floor width. Like I said, isn't 50 inches, so it's actually more of like a 1.5-person tent. And I was sold on this from all the influencers, from Dan Becker to Miranda Goes Outside to Justin Outdoors, and I trusted them, and I didn't hear any bad things. But this was at the beginning of my backpacking journey. I didn't do enough research, and I didn't find these things out until I was using them, and I was so disappointed. It has some good features, like you have this little toggle from the inner mesh that connects to the outer mesh to create some more space inside, and it's generally pretty light for a 2-person double wall freestanding tent. But for the reasons that I am getting a freestanding tent, this is not what I want. It has to be pitched inner net first and then fly. So if it's raining, you're kind of screwed. So for that reason, I'm gonna give this an F. Just a total, like, don't get this unless you've done quite a bit of research. But even then, I think just the Xdome 1 is just a better option. And if you're willing to spend a little extra money, I will show some better options that are way lighter and way better in many different ways. So the next is the Hyperlite Ultimate or Mid 1. It is 454 grams and almost $1,000. Way expensive and not super light compared. Like the other 1-person tent options that we're gonna look at that is made of Dyneema, that is fully enclosed, are gonna be pretty much around or lighter this weight. The reason why I like this is just the style and the design. Like the look of this is so nice. Personally, I really like this white Dyneema that they use at Hyperlite. I much prefer it over this green and the other colors of Dyneema. For that reason, it gets some bonus points, but I do think it's pretty overpriced and it's not super light. Nonetheless, the style is what saves it. The steez, it's got a lot of steez, it's got a lot of style with ease. So I'm gonna put this at B. I would definitely suggest it over the Ultra or the Duplex, but I'm not sure if I would recommend it over the Xdome, for most users at least. We'll just skip ahead. Basically, Zpacks version of that tent is the Plex Solo. The reason why this is lighter is because of some geometry changes, but also because they don't include a zipper or a peak vent. So the peak vent is there to handle condensation issues, as we can see here. So air can escape and you don't have to deal with as much condensation. So Zpacks doesn't have that. Instead, they have some space in between the floor and the fly. And then, like I said, the Zpacks thing has the same rainbow interior zip, which I just don't like. But I do want to give this bonus points because it skips on the zipper on the front here, and I think the way they've designed this is pretty smart. And for what you're getting, if you're the type of person to go and get this style of tent, you're getting it because of the weight savings, so you don't really need a zipper. So for that reason, I'm gonna give this, it's like the lightest fully enclosed tent. I feel like it would be a disservice to give it a B, because it is better than that in most ways. I'm gonna give this an A alongside. And this also is like the Plex Solo, the Ultraplex, they're all basically the same tent, just different sizing. So next up, we got the X-Mid, the famous, super popular Durston tent. So there's the X-Mid Pro 2, X-Mid Pro 2 Plus, X-Mid Pro 1, X-Mid 2, and just like the comprehensiveness of the different offerings in the same design and style of this tent shows how popular and how good of a design it is fundamentally. And I really like how Durston actually did a 2 Plus. So this is designed to fit 2 wide pads, whereas the 2 is more of like a 1.5. 440 grams. It's about the same weight as the Hyperlite mid one, but it has some features that are just a lot better and a lot more livable interior space than the mid one. Now the downside is that it uses 2 trekking poles, so if you're someone that doesn't use trekking poles or you only want to use one, you can do that if you are willing to go find a stick every night, but it's not definitely recommended. And if, let's say, you break a trekking pole, which you're more likely to break 1 trekking pole than you are break 2 trekking poles, so this is a little higher risk, I guess you could say, but I think just like the overall livable space, yeah, the design, this has got to be S tier. Like, I have not heard a single bad thing about these. And like I said, all the options, you can get the Dyneema single wall, you can get the Sil Poly double wall. If you get the double wall, then you can pitch it without the inner and just the fly, so you basically get all of the best of all the worlds. Yeah, it's got to be S tier. Also, if you do disagree with any of these choices, let me know in the comments, and if I do miss any popular choices of shelters, let me know. I'm gonna try to bang through this a little faster so I don't take up your whole day. But this is the Cross Peak 2 by Hyperlite, 1300 for 964 grams. And it's a freestanding tent that isn't truly 50 inches wide. I think if you're getting, most of the time, if you're getting a freestanding Dyneema tent, you're gonna want it to be like for mountaineering. And you're gonna be using like thick pads, probably 25-inch wide pads, probably with 2 people. So I think, yeah, I just hate to see it. I hate to see it when a freestanding tent isn't 50 inches wide that says it's for 2 people when it's really actually only for 1.5 or, yeah. And then it's also not truly freestanding because you need to stake out the vestibules for that vestibule space. So it's not really for mountaineering, because in mountaineering tents you won't see that feature. A little bit of peak vent, but I don't think that's big enough. I haven't heard enough reviews or user reviews on this because it is 1300. So I'm gonna give this like a, let's give it a D. Okay, next up we have the Hyperlite Ultimid 2 and Ultimid 4. So these are designed for more like ski touring, multi-day adventures with multiple people sharing this shelter. Very popular in mountaineering. I think the pyramid design is one of the best designs for a shelter. It is great for snow, like the angles of the walls, the snow will just go off and it won't create a lot of pressure. And then wind also, these shelters handle wind very well. The biggest con for them is setting up in the wind. There's so much fabric to these types of shelters that you really need to be dialed and have a partner when you're setting this up if you're in a windy conditions. But honestly, like for what it's intended to be used for, I think it's got to be a B tier, and we'll get into why I think it's a B and no higher on this next option. So let's see, Ultimate 2 is 541 grams. Now this is the Bombfist Midis 2-person, and it is 410 grams, so 100 grams less than the same, basically the exact same design of the Hyperlite. And this only has one zip on the front, whereas this has two zips. So one zip on one side and then another zip on the other side. So it's actually designed for two people, or it's at least easier to use for two people. And because of this design, they actually changed the geometry of it a bit to save weight with the fabric. And so that's why it is that is most likely why it is lighter. If I were to get one of those, I would get this one, and it is also the reason why I like this more than the Hyperlite Ultimate 2 or 4 is because of the versatility and the options that they make for the internets. So if I show you solid internet for two people, they make a one-person internet, they make a one-person solid and one-person mesh. Just you have at least 5 different options for what shelter to bring with just this one fly. And that's why I think this is an A tier. Next up, we have the Hyperlite version of this pyramid style tarp, and we have the Zpacks version of the pyramid tarp. The Zpacks version is significantly lighter. Like I said, they save weight without a peak vent and without a zipper, which I think generally if you're the person to get this style of shelter, you're probably gonna be getting it for weight. So why would you get one with a zipper and a massive peak vent? You probably won't. Plus, as a tarp, you don't really need a lot of ventilation depending on how high your trekking pole is and the conditions, whether it's super rainy or not, because you can just pitch this higher and you can let a lot more airflow in so that condensation is less likely. So for that reason, the Zpacks pocket tarp is better than the Hyperlite Ultimate 1. Like I said though, I think just like the style, the color choice of the Hyperlite shelters are a lot more tasteful, in my personal opinion, than what Zpacks and other companies do with like this blue and the olive drab colorways. So it's pretty close, but the pocket tarp does take the win a little bit. I'm gonna give it a B tier. It's great. You're just gonna have to bring a head net, and for most people, this isn't a good option unless you're like you're a purist ultralighter. It's a great shelter though. Don't let this ranking of B confuse you. It's just a very niche use case that that people will use it in, and it's a very niche subset of people that would actually pick that shelter. Next is the Hexamid tent. So actually this next 3 choices are all very similar. So they all use 0.5 ounce DCF on the top, and then bug netting without a floor, so they're partially enclosed. I think if you're gonna be getting a one-person Dyneema tent like the Ultraplex or like the Mid 1, or even like the X-Mid 1, you should really consider, if you're willing to cut out the floor completely. You're already backpacking, you're already gonna be sweaty and dirty, and just having a ground sheet on the ground will prevent 90% of the dirt that you are touching. And with a little more thought and care in your camp selection, you'll basically notice no difference in terms of having a floor versus not having a floor. The only difference that you will notice and appreciate is the weight savings. So I just generally really think this design is a lot better than the fully enclosed one person super ultralight shelters. Almost better in every single way in 90% of conditions for 90% of people. It's just this mental block that a lot of people have that feel like they need a fully enclosed tent. But yeah, so for the Zpacks X-Mid tent, and then we got the Gossamer Gear Whisperer, and then we have the Adobe the Metaphysics Abode 204 grams. The reason why this is significantly lighter than the other two is because the Dyneema only comes up to around there, and then the rest is netting. And from what I've heard from user reviews is that you might think that this might have like rain coming in on the side, but I haven't heard any bad things. The bad thing that I have heard about this is if you're camping in a group and like you're hanging out with people, because you're not enclosed and because you can't just like be unseen, people might want to start conversation more, so you might have more conversations. That's the only con I have heard about it. For a fully enclosed tent that's 200 grams or 7 ounces is insane. For that reason, I'm gonna give this an S tier, because like I said, you don't really need a floor, to be honest. Floors are luxury items. Don't at me. This is super unique. I really like this design. It optimizes the living space where you're going to be sitting up and where your head will be and where you go in. But I haven't had many user reviews. I haven't really seen much talk on this shelter, so I can't give I don't have a lot of data to go off of based on my rating, but I'll give these two a similar rating of, let's just go with A. I think just the design, like having no floor and fully enclosed, and for that weight, sub 300 grams, is really good. Next, we have MLD tarps. They have a bunch of different tarps. They have the Monk, the Super Monk, very popular in the thru hiker and ultralight community, or at least the purist community, not the influencer community. Probably like some of the best ultralight tarps you can get, and they're very affordable. They make it in 0.5 DCF, 0.67 DCF, silk poly, different weights of silk poly, etc. So you have a lot of options and a lot of different sizes you can choose. So it's a tarp at the end of the day. Tarps have their limits, but personally I prefer tarps. Nothing super special there, but I'll just give it an A or a B. And then the Gear Swifts Poncho Tarp. This is the lightest like tarp I've seen, and it is mostly that light because it uses 0.5 ounce DCF, as well as it is very short and skinny. So it's, I think, 4 feet by 8 feet, and the price is very reasonable, albeit it's not a lot of material. So I think if you're like going super crazy ultralight, if you're nerding out, if you want to flex, like I think this is a great choice. But for most people, it won't be amazing. So I give that a B as well. Next is the Gatewood Cape. I heard a ton of suggestions. I think if you are a beginner or you're limited with your budget and you want to be like in the sub 8 pound, sub 6 pound base weight range, this is one of your best options, if not your only option, to do that in a budget. So it's a poncho tarp, but unique in its design because it's fully enclosed. It's like a pyramid tarp in that way, so you're a lot more closed off. The biggest con with this is if you're tall, it might not fit you, I've heard. But the price is really good. The weight is insane. And plus, since it's not DCF, comparatively, it's a lot more packable. And you don't need to worry about it like ripping or repairing. It's a little easier sometimes. But yeah, So this is honestly just a cult classic. I got to give this an A. Okay, the Yama Mountain Gear. I really like this design. I saw a video by them at some point where they were setting up in really high winds and it was super rainy. I think this design is perfect. It's really cool because you can zip it up and then you can roll it over and you can come through this entry, like the front panel, or you can roll up the side and come through the side panel. It's very reasonably priced as well. It gives you full protection with good ventability and breathability because of that peak vent, as well as you can change how it's set up so more airflow is coming up through the bottom. In terms of shaped tarps, I think I prefer this style. There's a lot more livable space. You don't need to worry about brushing your head up against the fly. And for that reason, I think it beats out a lot of these other shaped tarps. But it is a bit heavy just because of the material it's using. At some point, they were offering it in DCF, but I don't believe they do anymore. And soon they've also shown that they're working on adding a fly or net mesh to the bottom of this, similar to how the Whisperer is. And once that comes out, if they can do that with the DCF, I think that's another great option in the A tier. But for now, it's somewhere between B and C, mainly just because of the weight. But let's put it in B. This is one of the tents, the shelters that I'm most excited for, and I really, really want. I'm going to be making another video about the future. What is the future? Where is the future going for ultralight backpacking? And there's kind of two different directions I see it going. One direction is just like continued innovation in the materials that is being used. And then the other direction is the actual design of it. So like every 2 to 5 years, someone releases an ingenious design. For example, the X-Mid was this like 5 years ago. And then this is one of those another examples of an ingenious design that before this nobody thought of it, but it just makes so much intuitive sense. So the ounce Designs Adobe is only 165 grams, but what the reason why the ounce Designs Adobe is something that I'm super excited about is because of the design. So there's multiple different modes that you can pitch it in. The first mode is the friend mode. So it has this beak that can extend out and lengthen the internal shape, like volume of the tent or the shelter. So it supposedly fits two people. The reason why I want to get my hands on it is to see if that's actually true and to see what size of people it can fit, because of course it can fit probably 5'2" people, but can it fit 6'2" people is the question. And then another mode that it has is the chill mode, he calls it, and you basically roll up this part and it's just like a normal pyramid shelter. And then storm mode, and you roll it down, and then it has this tensioner at the bottom, and so then it becomes like a normal pyramid shelter. So without adding extra weight, without adding extra zippers or unnecessary features, he's been able to make this design that could fit 2 people, is comfortable for 1, has multiple different modes, and has good living ability, plus all the additional benefits of having a pyramid style tarp. And for that reason, this has got to be an S tier. This is just like some of the I gotta get my hands on it. If you have one that you're looking to sell, or if you have a connect with him, let me know. I've DM'd him, but he says he's sold out, and then I've gone to Microdose Gear or Microdose where he sells his stuff, and it's all sold out. So yeah, let me know. Okay, this is a deep cut, the big Agnes Scout 2 carbon. So this tent I think was released around 7 years ago. It's super unique because it uses 0.3 ounce DCF on the fly. 0.3 ounce DCF is so light. The most tents that you'll see that is made out of DCF is typically 0.7 ounce, depending on from which brand. Zpacks mainly uses 0.5 ounce DCF, but 0.3 ounce was so light that they discontinued it, and it's no longer available from the manufacturers of Dyneema or from any brands, except for, actually, if you go to this link, they have some for sale for like $700. But the reason why it was discontinued is that it's way too light, that it just ends up breaking. It can't handle tears. It's so fragile. And Andrew Skirka has like a review on it from like 5 years ago. He used it for an expedition and it like broke immediately. But this is the lightest two-person tent to ever exist. That's fully enclosed. I believe it's around 250 grams, which is just absurd. I also want to get my hands on this, but for $700 for just some vanity tent that will most likely break within a week of use, that's just not worth it. But I think it's pretty cool. But for that reason, because of just like the bad choices, the lack of research and product research and prototyping and testing, this has got to be an E, but A for effort, because I think it's really cool that they tried to make such a light tent. Yeah, and you don't see that from Big Agnes. Big Agnes sticks to their wheelhouse, which is beginner and REI and mech level tents that are way too heavy and honestly not very pretty to look at or easy to use. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't really heard anyone who knows anything talk about Big Agnes. Hot take, but it's cool that they tried to do this, and they also use this material for their I forget the name, like their Tiger UL or something, or HV Creek or something. Forget the name, but yeah, they had a whole series of that, and now you can't get them anywhere because of just how fragile and how bad they were. Next up, we got some Bivvies. So this is the MLD Superlight Solo Bivvy. Heard great things. It's one of the lightest, waterproof, breathable Bivvies that you can get. For that reason, I gotta give it a C. I don't think it's super crazy. Actually, you know what? I'll give it a B. If anything, Criffram's gotta be a C. Maybe I've been a little too nice on these ratings. But honestly, I can appreciate all of them, except for the Nemo Hornet. And then the Bora Gear Bug Bivvy. I think it's called the Bug Cuban Bivvy. And for its price and its weight, this is the lightest Bug Bivvy that you can get. And for that reason, it's got to be like the best Bivvy. Now, Hyperlite has some of theirs, but it's not very light. It's like 200 grams or 270 even. So yeah, this has got to be probably the best Bug Bivvy you can get. In terms of the Bug Bivvy worlds, this has got to be like an A, maybe even S. You know what? I'll give it an S. All right. That's it for the rankings. If there's any shelters that I missed that you want me to include, maybe I'll make another video. If there's any shelters that are completely wrong, like maybe the X-Mid deserves to be an A, or maybe the Xdome deserves to be an S, or something of the likes, let me know in the comments. I will be sure to debate you in the comment section. And yeah, like I said, if I missed any shelters, comment them and I'll make another video. I'll do my research. And I think, like I said at the beginning of the video, this whole list is very personal opinion, my personal opinion, and I haven't even used most of these tents. I've just been spending hours, way too many hours on YouTube and social media looking into these tents and these shelters and these makers and these brands, that I feel like I have enough information to make this video. But obviously my ratings would change after use. So yeah, appreciate you watching. Subscribe for more. I have a fun video coming up, which is the ultralight iceberg. I think that'll be a illuminating for people who are just getting into the ultralight rabbit hole and who want to learn more about cooler, more niche brands. Peace.